Everyone Games is uniting disabled gamers, celebrities, veterans, and anyone that wants to play for a 2-day livestream event of tabletop and video games to show that everyone games. The Knights of the Braille are joined by a community of volunteers to play alongside Jennifer Kretschmer, T1J, Radders, Blind Temple, Honey and Dice, EJ from Non-Compete, Drunken Bard, History Wizard, Vadim, Runaway Robot, and Luke Gygax, and many, many more celebrities. So you can donate now for your chance to win and play with one of these incredible celebrities and raise money for Everyone Can and StackUp.org, two incredible charities raising money for disabled kids and veteran gamers. Go to justgiving.com/everyone-games. That's justgiving.com/everyone-games. Join us on the 30th of September and the 1st of October to game after game of celebrity games.
Now recording.
The following podcast may have adult humor,
swear words,
innuendos of a adult nature.
making fun of me.
That's a given. Everybody looks forward to that. But just know that you have been warned. Hey everybody, this is Richard back again with I think we're gonna go with this standard issue or episode of The Blind Knights. I know everybody's cheering that Jesse's not in the podcast. At least I won't get interrupted by him today. I can't speak about my guests, But hey, if they do interrupt me, I'm at least used to it, right? When it comes to like homebrew or what's the term, official content, pre-written stuff, which do y'all prefer?
I think I'm a big proponent of like homebrew, but it's honestly, I'm gonna put it on the DM, and if they want to use pre-written things, I'm not gonna argue with them because they're already taking a lot of time to be a DM. So in my game that I normally play later today, our DM is like, he's got a homebrew world, but now we just kind of went to this dungeon and he's running a module for the dungeon that we were in. So he's doing a mix, and then our other DM, Andrew, that's the one Quinn plays in, is just all homebrew, and he's always doing like pretty much all homebrew. He's using the Theros setting though, so like we got, again, it's a little sprinkling of lore, but mostly it's homebrew. So
yeah, that's a good book too, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I like. So I like homebrew, but if you want to use published things, I'm fine with it. I just don't necessarily I'm not going to necessarily follow the module. Just as long as you're aware, if you put a module in front of me, then I might ignore some plot hooks and go do my own thing. As long as you're fine with that, then we can
rhyme.
Yeah, for me, like most things, is I'm gonna be a mix. So I like to homebrew my stories, and like I'll plan out missions that'll be like, okay, so they're gonna go do this thing, and then it'll be like whatever, however many sessions, doesn't matter. They can take as long as they need, but it'll probably be like 3 to 5 sessions they'll work on this thing. And I'll go out and I'll find a map that somebody else made that works with what my idea was. So, like, for example, the only game I'm actually running right now that we haven't played in a year, but there are 3 recorded things that I need to edit, it's for our Patreon patrons, where I'm running for Alex. And, like, I had them go to a library, and there was a puzzle they had to solve, and then there were some monsters that they could encounter, but they had this whole library to explore. So I just went through, and I was like, okay, I see that this map here has 12 rooms or whatever. And I go through, and I look at the map and kind of think about, like, what would I want to put in this room, and then I'll write up a description, so that way, like, if they go to wherever first, I just go down to my thing, and I'll see, okay, they went to room 12, and now I can kind of do those kind of hooks and clues and hints for them to go as they go along. But it's nice to have a pre-written story when you can't think of something, like how to figure out what you want to do. Yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes I'll pop in and look at the Curse of Strahd or another one of the various books that I have, and it's like I can read one sentence in there, and it's like, boom, then I'm starting to get like tons of ideas.
Like if you're reading a bunch of different books, you're like, oh, or watching movies or TV shows or whatever, and you're like, this is giving me an idea. I can incorporate an element of this into my game.
Yeah.
Right. Like, oh, that'd be a great one shot. Oh, that's a great campaign setting, So you're finding inspiration in all kinds of stuff. And we're actually over halfway. Go figure. Some of these questions we may have answered. But little more serious question here. Mental health is a big aspect and a big thing going on in the world now, and has been. It just wasn't whenever I was younger. How do y'all feel that TTRPGs have helped people with the mental health issues?
So, okay, I'm glad that I interpreted this question correctly, because that's what I thought you meant based on what you'd sent. But I think they're a great stress relief and they're a great form of escapism. They can also help you figure out how to maybe solve problems and explore different aspects of your identity and learn different things about yourself. So like maybe if you're exploring gender identity with your character, you can realize, oh, I identify more as this, or I don't identify as any gender, or I feel more gender fluid. Like, you really get the space to explore that, and hopefully like you have a safe enough group to do things like that. And they're also a great way to connect with other people.
Right.
And you can get that sense of community that you might be lacking in other areas of your life. So, but the inverse can be true, and you could have a really toxic group, which is why it's important to have a session 0 with everyone, so everyone can be on the same page. So that way, even before you start playing, you'll know if it's actually the right group for you.
Right, because a toxic player can ruin everybody's experience.
It really can.
Alec, you may need to get Quinn checked out, because if she can understand what I'm saying, this is a very, very bad thing. Because anybody who understands me, I worry about them. But how do you feel about it?
I agree with Quinn. I think that it's a good... Well, all the groups I've played in have been pretty good. Well, I had one DM that seemed like he was trying to kill our characters and was... he was there more to try to kill us than...
He was trying to kill our characters. He killed my character.
Yeah, so that was a bad experience. But otherwise, I've had pretty good experiences with groups and playing with people. And I've had a lot of fun. And I think that it can be, like Quinn said, a great way to connect with people and help some people. Like maybe if you're shy in the actual world, you can start playing a character that's not shy and try exploring that and see how that feels. And if you don't like it, just go back to being shy, and that's fine too. Another thing that I noticed that it's funny, one of our friends said that we play with, because she also has some mental health things, like most people in our group, but our friend, the one friend said something like, oh, I love that we have like a reliable, like, this is a thing I know we're going to do every week, and I know people are going to show up. Like, basically just having like this firm plan that people are going to show up to, and we're going to play a fun game, and I'm just going to have fun for that night, So she, that was even not even playing the game, it's just the fact that we had something on the schedule that she could look forward to was helping her out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Quinn said, you get to look forward to stress-free, to being able to release like the tension, I feel it's very, very important. I'm still worried about Quinn interpreting my question correctly, though. You know, and we've kind of talked about this with the accessibility. You know, D&D Beyond is really, really good about now the character sheet being accessible for the most part, as well as the source books and, you know, campaigns are really accessible. But you know, I'm sure y'all have found like a lot of PDFs for somebody using a screen reader is not so accessible. You know, and Quinn, with you being as I call people would cite a sighty, you know, how does accessibility affect you? I mean, I guess how
very
passionate about it are you?
I have a lot of feelings in general, and like sometimes Alex will be like, it's fine, whatever, and I'll feel more angry about it than he will.
Fact.
Yeah, so like I'll feel the secondhand frustration when he can't use something, and I'll get mad for him so that he doesn't have to. That's what I'm bringing to the table.
That happened with the Blades in the Dark when they sent me the player kit or whatever, and I tried to read this PDF, and I was like, this is like a garbled nonsense thing. I don't understand. And then it was partially because I didn't know the terminology for the game, and partially that the PDF didn't render well, and I was like, this is just a mess. So Quinn had to help me with that.
Yeah, so that's the biggest thing is like when accessibility fails or it isn't thought about at all, I have to come in and help him. And it'll be like, okay, Quinn, like, I'm going to do this fun thing that you aren't even a part of or necessarily want to be, but you have to go through and you have to read the rules of this game and figure it out to figure out what it's actually, like, saying and mean and all this stuff. And I'm like, I have no idea what any of this means. And now I have to learn it, and I don't even want to play the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and that's, you know, what Jim and I have done a lot is taking, like, the PDFs and converting them basically to a Microsoft Word document so that, you know, people can read it. And
go ahead.
From my point of view, it's... Do what? No, Jess. I mean, Alex, it's fine.
I was just going to say,
Go
basically
ahead.
That's what I've done for myself for the 5e, like, stuff. So that's kind of how I like... That's why I like playing 5e, because I'm like, oh, I have all the stuff. I've already made it accessible for myself. So.
And that's another reason you haven't branched out as much in other games, because you're like, well, I've already sunk hundreds of hours into making this one thing accessible for myself. I don't really want to do that or have to make Quinn do it.
Right. Well, that's not what he said in the email, but, you know, that's just a different story. But yeah, I think that's the reason D&D is so popular with, you know, the blind or low vision, because it is so much more, you know, accessible, along with being, you know, widespread and, you know, very popular in and of itself. You know, they seem to be focusing on accessibility a bit more now than like individual publishers, you know. And the reason I had asked that is because I know I had looked at y'all's page whenever I updated the Knights of the Braille website to include it, you know, the resources and documents. And I noticed you have like a dyslexic font version, a screen reader version, you know, and, you know, for somebody who uses a screen reader, I personally appreciate it.
We make some homebrew content or like character sheets, and Quinn, like, basically I'm usually the one that actually makes the homebrew content, so it's usually written, like I said, in my little text editor, and then I give it to Quinn and she'll make it a PDF.
I format it.
Yeah, formats it for the CITES, and then we'll put it on the website, and then she found a dyslexia font that she uses for that same document, and then for the screen reader one, she'll change it and make it just a little more accessible, and then I'll check it and make sure...
take out the tables, because... So, like, when you're sighted, tables are so useful and really important.
Yeah.
So Alex obviously won't put it in there, and I'm like, I hate reading through his wall of text. Which makes sense that he would have a wall of text, because he doesn't need the visual cues of it. He just needs it to go through line by line, whatever, which is fine. So I leave that, and that's like what will be in the screen reader accessible version. I'll take that out for like myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll try to have less links randomly in the middle, and just have, like, if we have links to things, try to put it at the end so it doesn't interrupt your reading as much.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it depends on the format of the thing, because sometimes, like, on a Wikipedia page, if it's reading, it'll be like, oh, Captain Jack Sparrow was the captain of Link the Black Pearl, you know, and then like keeps going. But sometimes it'll be like, oh, Captain Jack Sparrow was the captain of Link the Black Pearl. HTTP www ... and then it like goes forever, and you're like, oh god, just get past it.
Yeah, so I try to avoid that.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a little fun fact for the segments that might not know that sometimes we get to read a lot of URLs that you don't want to read.
We get to read your garbage.
Yes. I personally, for one, hate tables, but I understand their importance. You know, having been able to see, you know, before I lost my sight, I understand their importance. But being a screen reader user, I hate them.
And where do you eat?
Do what now?
Tables. It's a bad joke. It's just a bad joke.
Well, I usually hold the food in my lap.
Bad joke. Okay.
Yeah. You know, if I'm feeling especially generous, and you know, I'll walk outside because I do live in the country, and you know,
he only eats picnics.
But
okay, excellent.
Spreads out a blanket always.
Yes.
Yeah.
The picnic ham, you know. I've had this happen in a couple of my sessions, and maybe you have. How do y'all feel about like player versus player, like inter-party conflict to the point of, you know, player versus player then?
Like, I see no use for it. It's like, it's one thing if the party doesn't agree on like a specific course of action, and then you have a discussion about it and everybody makes a case for like why they want to do a certain thing, whatever. But when things are outright hostile, or an actual combat ensues, like, no, I don't want that. Like, it boils down to me that if there's a conflict like this, you wouldn't be traveling in a party together. It just doesn't make narrative sense. So,
right.
Like, if it comes to a point where that might happen, you have to figure out who's leaving the group. Like, maybe you're doing it because you're done with the character, and if that's like the route you want to do because of that, that's fine. But like, people aren't going to travel together if they hate each other like that and don't agree on anything. And like, if someone wants to go and murder everybody and no one else wants to, that's not going to fly.
Yeah. I'm kind of the same opinion as Quinn. I think if there's a narrative reason for PvP, I'm okay with it, like to a point. But again, it's like, okay, that the point has come, the fight can take place, but then the party's gonna split because that's not gonna keep going. So, for example, in our Theros campaign that we're playing, my character died and came back to life, but no one in the party knows that. And she serves the god of deception, but tells everyone she's serving the god of the sea. And then there's another party member who serves the god of death, and the god of death is very much about like, oh, people should not be brought back to life, and if they are,
once you die, you die.
We should re-kill them because then I can claim them, like they are mine now. They shouldn't get to escape the underworld. And Mike, so
Erebus.
And so if the cleric of Erebos finds out that my character has died and come back to life, they are going to try to kill me. So I'm like, I've accepted this, and I know that if this happens, it's a role-playing thing, and we'll figure it out from there and figure out how we want to continue the campaign. But I do not think those two will travel together if that is ever revealed.
Yeah. Another example of like a point when it like could work is maybe somebody gets possessed by some cursed item, and starts doing things like that. I'd be fine with.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I feel that there's times for it. I've had it happen in my groups. because a player kept doing stupid stuff, and he pushed them down a hill on the sled, and I mean, it was like a 200-foot like downslope. So he gently floated down to the bottom, and he would put them in danger, and he was purposefully doing this stuff. Well, the players eventually got tired of it and, took action into their own hand. And I don't know that he realized that, I take that back. He knew what he was doing, playing his character, but I don't think he meant it that way, coming from his character. He just thought it was funny as a character, but everybody else was getting upset and eventually took matters into their own hand.
I have another quick example if I can.
Nah. Go ahead.
This is a bad example. I mean, it's a good example of a bad situation. So I was playing a warlock that was worshiping serving a fiend, but she thought she was a cleric of a god. So she was like telling everyone she's a cleric, but doing warlocky things like eldritch blasting and that kind of thing. And the party is like getting suspicious of her, and then she got a familiar that was an imp, but she didn't know it was an imp. She just thought it was like a bird because they can just look like birds or whatever. And then eventually the actual cleric in the group found out, and he just like took the party and ditched my character in like an inn, and so everyone else just ditched me, and I was like, okay, now what do I do? Like, this character, you didn't talk to her at all, because she would have been like, oh, I thought I was serving a god. Like, I will listen to your reasoning of why you think I'm evil, but they just like was like, oh no, she's evil. She's serving a demon. Let's go. But my character didn't know she was serving a demon, so I was like, that was just I wish there had been a little conflict and they had talked to me, because we could have worked it out, but then my DM was like, I don't really know what to do with this.
Conflict is important for interesting stories.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be hostile.
Right, like if they had asked me, she would have been like, oh, that's interesting. I thought she was a god, Yeah,
don't have conflict for conflict's sake. Yeah. Have it make sense. And talking about character deaths and all of that earlier, how do y'all feel about character deaths in D&D 5e? I have my opinion, which a lot of people don't like, but that's the way that my party has to roll with it. How do y'all feel about it?
I think it depends on the circumstances of the death. Like, if the character did something really stupid that caused their own death, like, I'm thinking of...
Are you thinking of my character that maybe did something stupid and caused her own death?
Yeah.
And her name is April?
Yeah. Like...
I did have the feeling that she was looking at you as she was saying
I'm fine with
this.
it. Like, you made a dumb choice and you died. But, like, if the GM is out to TPK, like, I hate that hostile environment. Like... I get it. It also depends on the group.
Yeah, I'm okay with going into fights and knowing that there's a risk of death, but it's like when every fight is a risk of death because the DM wants to kill you, it's not fun.
And this again goes back to what I was saying about the session 0. Like, if the DM wants that kind of thing or the players want that kind of thing, like, that's fine, but you guys need to be on the same page.
Right. It's like putting a Tarask against a group of level 1 players. Yeah. You're gonna die.
Not even gonna make it through round 1.
No.
And that was kind of what
not at all.
This DM did, where he put us in a monastery and there was a lot of zombies, and we're like, how many? And he's like, there's just a lot. And then it was basically, he just had them keep coming.
Yeah. It was
so
basically
we had
endless.
to run, but we were like, well, we can fight zombies. So then we didn't run, and then now we're almost all dying because we were stupid, but we didn't know that we were like, oh, this is your signal for us to run. But you should have said thousands of zombies, not a lot of zombies, because a lot, it could be 20.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you really don't want us to do like fight whatever, you want us to go do something else first, like maybe stop what's causing all these undead from coming up.
Yeah.
Say that there's hundreds or thousands, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is an insurmountable obstacle right now.
Yeah, give us some sort of hint. But yeah, I'm also okay with player death. I almost said player death. Character death. I'm not okay with player death. Character death, if it's like narratively again making sense in the world and like that it's something you've discussed in the session 0 as a possibility. Like if the DM is like, oh, we're gonna play a flowery game and it'll all be sunshine and rainbows, and then like session 2 your character's killed, you'll be like, what the heck?
What happened?
Well, the rainbow is made of acid.
I didn't specify. The sunshine is very radioactive. And...
We're very close to the heat death of the universe.
Yes. And I know whenever I build encounters, I go by like my party strength and how they get out of certain things, and occasionally I find myself having overpowered the enemy compared to the party, so I will adjust things, on the DM side, like, I'm not going to pull punches, granted, but if Richard has made the mistake of overpowering it, I'm not going to make my party suffer because of it.
Make their HP less.
Yeah.
Or, their hits are a little bit
and
weaker.
Exactly. I'm not going to make my players suffer because Richard made a mistake. Now, at the same time, I'm not going to, help them out either if they are doing stupid stuff.
But if they're doing a legitimate effort at fighting, then it's different. Or it's like, you could just reason like, oh, they're using a great sword that's 2d6 damage, but they're getting tired because you've wounded them so much. Now I'm going to make it a d6, and no one has to know but Richard.
Yeah. Or like here's an example of when I had a character that did something stupid where like he thought all magic users were evil. And he pissed off a powerful magic user, and he basically told her to her face that she was evil and magic was evil and all this stuff. And Alex was like, "Yeah, you've pissed her off." Yeah,
she mass suggestion that the whole party leave the city. She's like, "Get out of my city."
Yeah,
and they all failed because she was like level 18 or 20 or something. Like she was like a 20 level wizard that just had opened a magic shop post adventuring.
Yeah.
And they were just in the magic shop, and Quinn's character comes in like, oh, you're evil.
Yeah. And Alex was like, the campaign ended before we got into that, but he's like, yeah, you pissed off a powerful person. Like, that was going to come back to bite you in the butt. I'm like, yeah, my character, he made a choice, and it would have greatly affected him. But yeah, I'm like, he made a stupid choice. Mm-hmm. It was in character, but yeah, it would have had major consequences.
She probably could have just killed your character, but
of course.
What does that mean?
She wouldn't have killed him right then, but later he came back and bothered her some more. Been like, I warned you.
I had that happen with Draco, except I didn't piss off another character or an NPC. I happened to piss off a god. He had brought us into this like horror nightmare, and Draco spoke in Draconic. I'm gonna I think he said I'm gonna piss on your grave or something like that, because he didn't know it was a god. And all of a sudden the sun blinked, and all you could hear is laughing, and that's when Draco went down to 0 hit points. But thankfully it wasn't just a nightmare, but he did suffer from it. In D&D 5e, you have the life saving rolls. I can't think of what the term actually is. Yeah, death saves. Thank you. See, I love having people smarter than me around. How do y'all feel about the death saves?
They can be really scary.
I was gonna say, I kind of like the tension of them. Like, if you, I have one fail, this roll could kill my character. But again, I think it depends on your level. Like, if you're level 1, they can be really, really scary. But if you're, level 10 or something, you're like, well, we can probably afford a cleric and get this person back a little easier.
Yeah. When it comes to me as a player and as a DM, the group that I run,
really?
they don't get death saves. I think it makes them no, they don't. It makes them strategize in a totally different way as far as having that safety net. I don't like them because I think a lot of people, and I've noticed this like in some of the actual plays that I've listened to whenever I had that thing called free time, they would use it as a safety net. And as a player, I don't want the death saving throw either. If I get into 0, I'm dead. And granted, it's made me roll up several new characters, but I've started doing something a little different with this character that I really, really liked, but happened to get TPK'd by herself with one blow. Like, dang, I really liked her, and I just created her like 2 weeks ago. So what I did was I brought her back, and she was a bard, but now she is a Minotaur barbarian who still thinks she's a bard, but her charisma is like 6. So it's a way to keep the same player, the base of it, but have to play it totally different. I just particularly don't like them because of the whole safety net aspect of it.
Go ahead.
It also. No, it's okay, Jesse.
You feel like Jesse's still here.
Nah.
Yeah.
I know. But it just makes you think about what you do in a totally different way, and I personally like that kind of strategy.
I was going to say that I think one thing that kind of maybe could help the death save argument is a lot of times I think, especially in actual plays and stuff, when like if you're fighting, let's say, a villain, and they hit you and you go to 0 and you're in death saves, then they turn their attention and hit someone else. Like, now they should hit you while you're down, and now it's like, well, I just lost 2 death saves immediately. So now I'm 1 roll away from maybe dying.
And I think that's the scary thing for me, is that, like, knowing that realistically, this character that I love, that they would hit me, like, because I like to play a character that's up in the thick of things.
Yeah.
They're probably gonna hit me.
So I feel like that, I think, is not utilized very much by DMs, and I kind of understand it because people get attached to their characters and they don't want them to die. But I think if you go into a campaign knowing that it's a little riskier, then it's a little, more of a thing that you would want to be wary of and like be ready for mentally. Like, I would love this character, but I know if that I run up and piss a god off, I might die.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and he did. And what I've started, what I did with one of the characters, Jesse's character, Bodar, he said, but I don't want Bodar to die. Okay. It was a horror campaign, so he was frozen in time by a spell that the big bad did. And I said, you're frozen there, but yet you're still alive because you still have your thoughts. Your heart still beats, but you cannot move.
Yeah.
And Jesse, he I think he got a little upset. He tells me he didn't, but he's constantly bringing it back up, and a perfect way to quote unquote kill a character, but not kill a character.
Permanently incapacitated him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they seem to like it, I said, see, I'm not killing y'all this time. Me personally, I'm a fan of dwarves and sorcerers. I like the dwarf whenever I'm going to be a barbarian, but I like, elves or, something else for a sorcerer. What about y'all? Do y'all have a favorite race and
Dwarves and
class?
Barbarians.
Or
I want to go in and smack stuff.
that's my girl.
Yeah, and
hack and slash.
And Harry, so like that's a dwarf. That's me.
But you got to have a mug of ale or mead or something in the other hand, hook to your shield, so that you can tip it up, take a swallow, swing the axe.
I'm kind of the opposite here. I'm a big warlock fan. I just like the flavor of warlocks. Like, I don't think the class is really that great. Like, their spell list leaves things to be desired, but I really like the idea of invocations and the cantrips, so I like warlocks a lot. And I also like my witch class that I made because it's kind of like a mix of warlock, wizard, and druid, because you get a little bit of all three of those. But then I'll just say warlock for the sake of not making people go find my witch class that I made.
No,
and then,
they should go find it. They're cowards if they won't do it.
That's a good point. Then
exactly.
Yeah,
it's self-promotion Saturdays we
point.
record this. So
and then I like a halfling, a little short person I like a halfling that can just mess stuff up, you know.
Yes, I love my little halfling that I play in the play-by-post.
Excellent.
He's a chef, you know, and he thinks he can perform, but he gets a -1 to any charisma, you know, check. So he thinks that he's awesome and, you know, can perform and act, but he really, really sucks at it. But we need to get Quinn to put the witch class on D&D Beyond in the homebrew section so that, you know, we can add that to it.
I don't think you can add a class. I think it's
can't
only
add a class.
subclasses. She's looked into it. You can only add subclasses. Yeah,
So it's easy to just do the wizard and
Yep.
in parentheses put witch.
That's possible.
See? We just don't want to do it. Now I'm getting you.
You're just giving me work. What is this?
We know that y'all been playing. Takes up what we used to call free time. You know. We know that y'all been playing since 2014 when you got started with the Facebook group and all. So last question here.
right.
I know I've missed a lot. I'm sure. I mean,
It's already been 20,000.
what's that, sir? I know. That's a redneck counting for you. Like I said, I know we covered a lot. I'm sure I've forgotten something because I usually forget something here or there or everywhere. Is there anything extra that y'all, you know, would like to say that, like I said, I may have
I
missed
think one
or
question
you know,
that you did miss
didn't
that
think
I
about?
did think that I'd like to talk about is, like, you'd said your least favorite thing about TTRPGs.
Yes, I accidentally did
So,
skip over that.
I hate
one.
when they're too complicated to learn. Like,
And
600
pages
to
to
that I
read
need
through.
to memorize to play the game and, like, actually, like, know by heart to really enjoy the
Yes.
game.
Is there an example the other Pokemon version you guys tried to play? Because that game was
so
a
in the
mess.
podcast, I came in the second season, and the first season they were playing
a 5e module.
a 5e module that
Wizards of the Coast gave the guy that made it a cease and desist, so he like took it off the internet, and they were like, "Oh, we probably shouldn't use this in a podcast." So
when it came in, we were starting with a new system, Pokemon Tabletop United. It is so crunchy, like.
Yeah.
The amount of stuff that you have to do, like, we were so confused about what everything was and how everything worked, and it didn't really explain anything. It would talk about, like, it'd be like, oh, you need to do this thing, but it never explained what this thing was when it was introduced.
make an accuracy roll, and then you try to look up accuracy roll, and you're like, well, I don't see what that means.
Yeah.
I don't know that was the exact feature or whatever.
It doesn't matter. It was overly complicated, and we just weren't having fun because it was just like having rules discussions on the podcast.
Yeah, it was like roll to hit, and then they
Right.
roll something to defend, and then your damage is subtracted from something else they roll, and it's like, can we just do one roll to see if I hit, and then one roll to see the damage? Like, do I need to roll?
Yeah, and the dice rolls changed for certain things, and it was just like it wasn't the game for us. So we switched to Pokeroll, which is a lot less complicated, and I did read through the rules for that one. And I am the rules lawyer on that show, but that's just because like
Get
I
'em.
read through it and I remember them. And I'm like, hey.
Right.
Yeah.
And like,
Rules
it's fine if we
Nazi.
want to change rules. I just want us to be consistent is the main
Yeah.
thing. Is like, I don't care what we
Right.
choose, but we better be consistent throughout.
Mm-hmm.
How many pages
So
are
it's-
in that book?
It's
Or
weird. It's
do you
so like
remember?
2/3 of the book is just like the Pokedex and the Pokemon like moves that they can learn. Let me see, because I can look it up and I can tell you, because I'm curious myself. Alex, is there anything if you want
she's
to
excited.
talk about while
Yeah.
I'm looking?
Well, my least favorite part about RPGs, I'll talk about this quick while Quinn looks it up. So I think I was doing this in a recent session and I was just not having fun, and because I didn't initially have an answer, and then I was like, oh, this is actually, I figured it out. So there's a couple things I want to mention. One is like, sometimes when people go off and do their own thing, it can be kind of boring to just sit there while like a rogue is like, I'm going to go do a stealth mission and it's going to take an hour and a half of our 3-hour session that you guys have to just listen to. So that's one that is like, it's not very fun. Like, if it's moving the story forward, that's fine. But if it's like just a side quest, I'm like, hey, can we just like text the DM, like, you know, off, not during our actual game, and say like, hey, I want to go try to rob this noble, and
Yeah,
then
go do a play-by-post offline.
yeah, something like that, where I don't have to sit there and listen to it for an hour and a half and take away from my playing time. That's one. And then another one that I don't like is kind of when the game mechanics, which I know that you were saying the rule of cool here, so you're probably okay with this because you'll just rule of cool it. But I don't like when like the mechanics of the game kind of feel like you force into a situation that you like kind of can't solve. So like if you're given a puzzle and you're like, well, my character's intelligence is 6, but I figured the puzzle out. What do I do here? Or vice versa, like my character's intelligence is 20, but I can't figure out this puzzle. You know, where it kind of like that kind of thing, or
Right.
you know, or just like when the rolls are really like not helping you, or like if the DM's like, oh, you have to roll to figure this out, but I'm like, but I already figured it out.
Yeah, like you have to roll to get the specific information from somebody.
Oh, that too, yeah.
That
like,
is really annoying.
yeah,
When it's like, if I'm just talking to them and it would come up in conversation, like, if you can role play it,
Yeah, don't make me roll
you
for
don't
it.
need
Or
to have the
that
roles.
sometimes happens with like a persuasion roll where you're like, you make a good argument as a person, and then they're like, okay, roll for it, and you're like, well, I rolled a 1, even though my argument was actually persuasive. But then on the other side of that, if you're someone that's not very charismatic and you don't want to make a persuasion check, you're just like, well, I say something along these lines, and then you roll. I'm okay with that, but I'm like, I don't know. It's hard to fix that because, like I just said, you know, if you don't want to penalize people that aren't as charismatic, and you know, reward the people that are, but at the same time, it's just frustrating sometimes when that happens, and you're like, oh, I just made this great argument, and then I rolled a 1.
Yeah.
But
And I think part of that is the problem that it's just like kind of a D&D problem where there
it's
are
combat based, mainly.
it is combat based, and that was the point of it. And also like there are rules for that in there to be like, oh, like it can affect like the DC check or whatever, you can get bonuses and things. But those are at the DM discretion.
Right.
And it's like 2 paragraphs in that huge book, and it doesn't really give DMs a way to do it. And it's not really seen in, like, I feel like the other, like, books and modules as much. And then, like, the actual plays and stuff, people don't necessarily do it. So then it just perpetuates this thing that people don't know how to play it that way. But it is an option, they just don't see it.
Right. So those are kind of just some of the things that I can get frustrated by. But for the most part, I think it's a good game, and I have fun playing it.
All right, I have found the book.
Okay, let's let Richard react here on his own podcast.
Sweet. You know, I think a lot of, people try to overcomplicate the
Yeah.
the persuasion thing, and rolls in general or checks. That's why I go with, use common sense. If the argument makes sense, let them have it. As I learned whenever I was in college from my professor, keep it simple, stupid.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think,
don't overcomplicate, your life or the game.
That people try to rely on the dice too much sometimes for things like that. And
right, I think there was sometimes oh, I want to climb on the roof, and I'm like, well, I'll make a check for it. But if you're a monk or a barbarian, I would just be like, okay, you climbed onto the roof. You figured it out. You have a lot of strength. Don't make me roll to climb on this 10-foot roof if I'm a level 15 barbarian. I can just get up there.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you're a level 2 ranger or something and you're like, I'm going to climb on the roof, I'd be like, well, you try to roll an athletics check. Let's see how you do. There's a little different scenario there.
Right.
But, yeah, I agree with you guys.
It goes with what you're saying. Use common sense.
You got to do the really cool.
Yeah. If I'm a level 15 barbarian and I can't climb on the roof, I'm going to tear the building down.
Let me pour some acid on the support beam and smack it with a hammer. Or just smack it with a hammer. I'm not going to think. I'm a barbarian.
Exactly.
I'm mad. I raged. I'm angry that I couldn't do it.
Exactly.
You all will pay.
I'll get on this roof, whether the roof's on the ground or in the sky.
Yeah. I'll show that roof who's boss.
Exactly.
All right, this book, Pokeroll, 489 pages, but the basic rules stop. Page 88 is when the Pokedex starts. Page 346 is the Pokemon moves. And that's the rest of the book.
That's for the one you are doing
That's
now.
the one we are doing.
Did you figure out the other one, Pokemon Tabletop United?
That one I didn't find.
Is that based off of the Powered by the Apocalypse engine?
It's
but they
kind of it has some similar concepts, but
they do basically. You get a pool of D6s, and then 4, 5, or 6 is a success, and then you count the successes.
Okay, yeah.
That's how Blades in the Dark works too.
Yeah. Also, they have Pokemon Tabletop United.
Right.
They've got their handbook. Then they have a bunch of core documents. So their Pokedex is a completely different document. And they also have one called Useful Charts. If you gotta have a separate document called Useful Charts, your game is probably a little too complicated. Okay, the core book for Pokemon Tabletop United is 508 pages.
Okay, and that's without the Pokedex.
And that's without the Pokedex.
The other one is shorter with the...
Yeah, that's not one I'm going to be buying.
Let's go Pokeroll. It seems a lot simpler.
It is a lot simpler.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Go with Pokeroll.
Exactly. I love that philosophy, and I think that's going to be the title of this episode,
Yeah.
Keep It Simple, Stupid. Was there anything else that y'all would like to plug or talk about?
I guess we'll just one more time shout out our own podcast, a couple of characters, where we make different characters every week and discuss character creation and different aspects of role-playing games related to making characters. So, we thought we have an episode on making quirks in your characters and that kind of thing,
or how to make a backstory that gives your character something to work towards and also gives the DM things to work with to help you keep both of you engaged throughout.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you can find us. We have a website, a couple of characters podcast.com, and that's where all the homebrew things are as well. So you can check out the episode on the witch class that I made, or go read the PDF if you're a sighty, or you can go check out the accessible version. So yeah, I think that's all I need to plug. Quinn, did you want to plug anything else?
I mean, I've already plugged Dungeons and Dragon Types, my other thing.
Oh, I guess also, I don't know when is this coming out. We're going to be on Everyone Games, a couple of events.
It's going to come out before then, so
Yes,
y'all are
I'm
involved
playing
with
on
it.
Friday, September 30th, in the D&D Epic History game at 7 a.m. Eastern. And then Quinn's playing at 7 a.m. Eastern the next day. What's your game?
The Neo-Triassic Shoreline Regression Syndrome.
Okay. And then we're both going to be on the Representation in Gaming panel at 6 p.m. on that Friday the 30th.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll shout that out. Everyone games. I did the D&D Epic History last year, and I was playing Marie Curie, and I made her an artificer, and she was basically turned radium into magic and got a bunch of powers. And this year I'm going to play Edgar Allan Poe, and he's going to be a shadow sorcerer. So we're going to have a lot of shadow magic and him. I'm going to try to be broody again and angsty. Richard, we'll see how it goes. He might be bubbly and cheerful.
No, I don't think it'll happen.
Based on all this history of just Alex playing, like, it's not going to happen.
We don't know that he wasn't cheerful when he wasn't writing the really sad and, morbid poems that he was writing and short stories.
Anybody that writes about what is it, Arkham's Razor and Quote the Raven and what was it, The Telltale Heart? Yeah, I don't think he had a very good childhood or a very happy life, but I could be wrong. If anybody can pull happiness out of Edgar Allan Poe, I think it will be you. Looking forward to seeing it. And watching it whenever I get a chance. Unfortunately, I'm not very active with Everyone Games this year due to life and things going on here. But I did manage to finagle myself into slotting aside time to play in Dungeon World with Matt and getting the group back together from last year. So looking forward to that. Unfortunately, I can't be in any panels because I'm not sure when I'll be around a computer with a steady connection.
What time is your game at?
It's life, y'all.
Do you know? Do you know what time yours is at?
What's that, sir?
Okay.
I'd have to look back at the schedule, but I believe it's on Saturday. I think it's from 3 to 6.
All right,
but
sounds good. Well, we can look at the schedule.
The schedule's on their website,
I think it's
everyone-games.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I love having sighties. I just love it. But I do want to thank y'all for coming on, and recording the podcast with me. Finally, we could get it situated. Alex, I want to thank you for, being like Jesse and interrupting me. I really, really appreciate that.
He does that to me all the time on our show, too. It's just
that's what happens when you start rambling. You would just want to keep on rambling,
Exactly. Maybe you and Jesse need to do a podcast. I don't think y'all ever get one
descent
completed.
into chaos in about 20 seconds.
It'd be the two of us just talking over each other for an hour.
But again, I do thank y'all and appreciate it. And y'all go check them out, follow them, and y'all have a good time.
Thanks for
We'll
having
catch you
us.
later.
This episode is brought to you by the Knights of the Braille and is made possible through the support of viewers such as you. Please remember to like, share and subscribe to get all of the latest information and episodes. Thank you.
Welcome everyone to this exclusive one-shot, The Dungeon Daddy's Disciple.
Kicking off the Dice Head Revolution, T and Cleves of the Seesaw Podcast.
Chad Michael Boughton of Hindsight is 20/200.
And your DM Richard from Knights of the Braille.
Over the course of the series, join Brago, MP, and Grog as they find themselves in an eerie seaside town with no way to get home.
Do they have the strength to overcome the trials that the Dungeon Daddy has in store? Let the dice decide.